Hello everybody, I'm Wilbur Cheez-It, and this is my World War I German late war uniform. So just a few things I wanted to cover before I start the video. Yes, my voice has gotten deeper. Yes, I'm in a new house. That's one of the reasons why I haven't posted on my YouTube account in a while, is because I moved and just kind of lost the flow of posting videos. And lastly, in my last video, I think it was going over my German gear, I said some historically inaccurate things, and I noticed in a couple of my other videos that happens too. And either I fix them or I don't fix them because I think they're still fact. And you guys point them out in the comments, which I think is awesome. Even if sometimes they're kind of rude, it's okay because I learn, and I want you guys to keep doing that so I can research the thing that I got wrong more, and can make more videos and explain the things correctly. So without further ado, let's get into it. So what is a World War I German late war kit? So basically, this uniform I'm about to put on is going to represent a 1917 to 1918 uniform that you will roughly see in that time period of World War I on the German side. So to start with what I'm wearing now, what I have on now is just a cotton off-white dress shirt to represent the cotton undershirts they would have worn with their tunics. And under this I probably would have been wearing a cotton long underwear with this as well. And then these are just my basic trousers that go with the tunic, and I have suspenders to hold them up. And there's actually not much to say about these other than that these were changed from the older version along with the tunic. So when they switched over from the old tunic to the new tunic, they also changed the pants. The old pants used to be stone gray and didn't match the tunic, and they had, if you're in infantry, they had a red piping going down the side. When they switched over, they changed to field gray, or what most would call field gray, to match the tunic, so the tunic and the trousers matched, and they removed piping from the sides. Other than that, there's not much to say about these. That's it. They're just tunics, a lot like World War II ones, World War II German ones. Not much to say about them, just that they were changed from the old stone gray ones to now match the newer tunics. So now, we'll move to the M1915 tunic. So the key features of the M1915 tunic is, you'll notice from the old ones, the color, like I explained, is one solid color. There's zero piping on the entire thing besides the shoulder boards. And the collar is now one distinct color with no piping, unlike its older version. Also, the buttons are now hidden. No more shiny brass ones like the old tunic. They're hidden. Keep them nice. Just, yeah. Also, not that much big of a detail, but the cuffs are now large cuffs versus the old ones, which were probably about half the thickness up the arm. And the reason they made this switch was because, unlike the older tunic, which was made for traditional reasons, you know, you're made to stand out in the smokiness of a battlefield in the Napoleonic times. You know, they're still doing linear warfare back then when they had those uniforms. So it's important, you know, with all the flintlock muskets, to be able to see your soldiers and your comrades in battle. So it was just made sense to make everything so bright. But when you enter World War I, trench warfare, nobody wants to be seen like they did want in the Napoleonic Wars. They switched to more wartime colors, so darker colors, less noticeable piping. Ranks are going to be only signified by shoulder boards and collar tabs. No more, you know, crazy stuff going on, just a simple, everybody's got the same thing. So it's just more practical for the time. So what I'm not going to do is do up these collar hooks, which you can see are here, solely just because they're kind of annoying to do, and I just don't want to do them right now. Which you can see Paul Bäumer doing in All Quiet on the Western Front, in that memed picture of him where he's basically at the end of the war, and he's just tired and has his collar undone. So I'm gonna leave mine undone because Paul Bäumer. So to talk about my badge here, this is my wound badge 3rd class, which basically means if I was wounded 1 to 2 times at once and survived, I wouldn't gotten a wound badge 3rd class. If this was a wound badge 2nd class, it'd be silver, and that meant I was wounded to 3 times to 5 times, 4 or 5 times. And if it was a wound badge 1st class, I was wounded 5 plus times at once and survived. They were only introduced later in the war, so even if I was awarded one of these, I still wouldn't have worn it during combat. I would have kept it for ceremonial purposes, and this would have never seen action. So just keep that in mind. This would not have been worn during combat, nor would have any other awards besides Iron Crosses, Iron Cross ribbons would have been worn during combat. So now to talk about footwear, because that would have gone on before my tunic, but I didn't because it's kind of a hassle. So early in the war, you would have seen something like this. These are jack boots. They have hobnails in the sole, which are just there to elongate the life of the boots for the soldier, because when you're in the military, you're obviously going to do a lot of marching. They're going to go through some harsh use, so you want them to last as long as possible. So basically, that's just what the hobnails are there for. Some people will say, yeah, they give you a little bit of traction, but a lot of times it didn't do a lot in the muddy conditions that they faced. So these are blackened. In the beginning of the war, up until, say, 1915, there was an order to blacken all leather gear. Most soldiers followed this. Some you'll see, maybe not. A few pieces of gear here and there won't be dyed black. It wasn't a crazy order, just every soldier was supposed to now have black gear. So I've dyed these black to fit this impression, but these don't fit me anymore, so I can't use them, which is kind of sucks, because reproductions for these are kind of expensive. So that's what you would have seen early in the war. Later in the war, say 1917, 1916 to 1918, you'll probably see more low boots, ankle boots, which would have been worn with long strips of wool called puttees. They're designed to wrap around your lower leg, overlapping the boots and stopping about below your knee. This, many soldiers found a lot easier and tighter, more secure around their feet. Some soldiers didn't like them because they were hard to put on, and I will agree with them. They're kind of a hassle to put on. But I will say I like the low boots better. There you have a lot more traction because you have a lot more stability, because you have more ankle movement. You're not just stomping around in the boots. You have a lot more stability. These are almost like the jack boots in the way they have hobnails. Construction's different. They have laces. So, and the reason I say you'll see these more later in the war is because of the leather shortages the German army was having during the war. They used up a lot of leather. A lot of their gear was leather. So, obviously issuing boots, jack boots, big jack boots, to every single one of your soldiers for that amount of time, you're going to run out of leather eventually. So, to save leather during their leather shortages, they started issuing soldiers just the low boots. I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but I've heard people say that in the beginning of the war and before, they were issued the jack boots and low boots with puttees. So if that's true, you can see why they had leather shortages. They're issuing soldiers 2 pairs of leather shoes every single soldier. So obviously they had a leather shortage. They started using low boots because they used less leather, and that's why you'll see these more in later war photographs, along with the puttees, which were also being used by the Americans, the British, the French, the Italians, the Turks. Almost India used them. That's where they came from, was India. A lot of country used puttees. It was the fad of the time. So now we'll get into field gear. So the base of the field gear all relies on the belt and the buckle. You cannot wear any of this gear without the belt and the buckle. So, to start, the belt is also dyed black due to that order in 1915. Before that, they would have been kept the cowhide color that they came as. The belt buckle I have is an early war belt buckle with a brass outside and a silver inside. Later in the war, these would be changed to steel and then painted steel, which the color was field gray, so it would have been this color. I haven't used this one because, in my opinion, I don't think it's that big of a deal that I don't have a late war belt buckle. I don't think it's that inaccurate to have an early war belt buckle. I know a lot of people will make a big deal about it. Tell me in the comments if I'm really wrong, but I have an early war belt buckle. So, to set this up, you actually leave the belt buckle off to the side, and you take your first ammunition pouch. Each one of these cells, there's 3 of them, holds 3 stripper clips full of your ammo for your Kar 98, or not Kar 98, I'm sorry, your Gewehr 98. Kind of looked like this. This is for a Springfield 1903, the American side, but it looked just like this, and it would have gone, 3 of them would have gone into one. The order was also given to blacken these. After the order, these would have been issued black. Before the order, the soldier would have had to do it himself. So what I did here, these came as the old version, where it was dark brown leather. I then used, sorry, the lighting is kind of bad. I then used black shoe dye to dye the pouch this darkened color, and I like the way it looks. You can still see the brown peeking through, but it looks more black than it does brown, and it's kind of wearing off. It looks good, it looks worn. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the belt the right way and take my ammo pouch, feed the belt through the loops here, send that down all the way to the bottom, as shown here. Then I take my, hold on, let me think, the shovel. So shovel, entrenching tool. Most people call it an entrenching tool because back then it was called the entrenching tool more than a shovel. I will say this is a World War II entrenching tool and a World War II cover. The only reason I decided to go with that was because the World War I and World War II covers are basically the same. They're hard to notice from afar that they're the same. The only difference is that on the World War I version, the backs of these are cut out, and you can see the shovel, probably due to that leather shortage. And the shovel is also not time period accurate, but compare this to a World War I German shovel, they're very, very look-alike. So, again, these 2 items are World War II, but they hardly changed from World War I to World War II. And then, of course, your entrenching tool used to be help dig trenches, dig latrines if your trench needs one of those. If you need to dig a hole, you got a shovel, you know. So, take this, slide this onto my belt. At this stage, where it's halfway through, if I had a bayonet and a bayonet frog, I think I have an example in my drawer here. So this is a real bayonet frog, but I have not been able to get my hands on a real bayonet and scabbard. So at this point, I would take the frog, slide it onto the belt here, in between the 2 shovel loops, like so, and then feed the rest of the belt through the last shovel loop, and send the whole thing down my belt, like so. So then I could use the strap for the shovel. That's the reason why this is so long. It would go around not only the handle of the shovel, but it would go around the scabbard of the bayonet and hold the bayonet in place, so it doesn't bob around when you're running. But I don't normally put the bayonet on there because right now it's a cardboard replica. So, anyways, that's the entrenching tool and bayonet, how that would go on there. Now, my bread bag and field bottle. So, as you may notice, like I explained in my last video, this is the early war bread bag, which, in my opinion, this is not accurate. If I say I've been fighting in the war since 1914, 1915, I would still have all the gear I was issued. I wouldn't be issued anything new besides a helmet, essential items. So if I said I've been fighting since the start of the war, I would not have different gear. So this is most likely historically inaccurate. that I have a late war uniform, but early war equipment. Not accurate. But that's what I have because I actually started my World War I German impression wanting a early war kit. I gave the clothes away because they didn't fit me anymore, and then now I still have the field gear left over, so I didn't want to buy new field gear. Some of it can get kind of expensive, so I just used the stuff that I had. I don't want to drag this out, so I used the stuff that I had. It's not that big of a deal. It gets the job done. It looks the exact same. It is the exact same. The color's different. Big whoop. So, basically, the bread bag, rations, personal items, any etc. you want to put in there. It's basically a general purpose bag. Field bottle, obviously, water, which is just held on here with a strap, and then a hook hooks onto a D-ring to also stop it from flopping around as much when you're running. The difference between this and the late war ones is, again, the color. In 1915, they were changed to a darker field gray color, similar to my tunic, just to be more concealed. Wartime colors, just more getting away from that traditional look. I believe the field bottles were also changed. I haven't seen that in many pictures, though. But what you see as the later war version field bottles is you still see the leather straps, but the neck on the bottle is raised. It's now a cork, and instead of a screw, it's now a cork, and the cover, instead of being wool, is now a corduroy fabric. That's basically the only difference. Why? I'm not 100% sure. That's just the late war version, I believe. So to put this on my belt, same as the shovel. Start with the loops. No special gear to add in between these ones. 2 loops. And then a little hook here in the middle that just hooks on to the belt from behind. And that goes down as well. So, we're almost complete here. We have all my field gear on the back. Now to complete it off, I add the last ammunition pouch. So that's it for the equipment belt and all the equipment that goes on it. Next is what's called a bread bag strap. It's a strap that can hook onto the back of the bread bag and be used as a shoulder bag. But the second purpose of this is to go over my neck and hook on to my ammo pouches, which holds the front of the belt up. So now I'm just hooking the bread bag strap onto the front, or the back of the ammo pouches, because there's a D-ring on the back of those. I attach it. I can now just put the gear on like so. Forgot about the belt buckle. That's why this came out. Okay, so we're just going to rethread the belt onto the ammunition pouch. And then the belt buckle goes on like this. There we go. So that just goes on here. And I think it's on the second one is my size. Goes forward to lock that in. And that's how you put the belt buckle on. And then the back, I probably should have shown you before I put this on, but I'll show you after I buckle this. There we go. Okay, so I now have the belt buckled in the front, and yep, so as you can see there, the hook on the side of my tunic, which is sewn into the lining, holds up this side of the belt. There's also a hook on this side, which is also, I believe, on there. It's hard to see from the camera, but I think it's on there. And what I can feel on the back, there's 2 hooks, I'll put a picture up here, which also hold my belt up. And I believe those are on too, yeah. Okay, so now I just...
I'm sorry in advance for never fixing my collar.
Just everything. And that is the field gear. And my collar is messed up. Okay, I think that's good. Alright, so here's the field gear. Here's the purpose of the bread strap. Holds up the front of my belt. Here on the back is the bread bag and field bottle. We have the shovel, bayonet frog on there. So with the field gear done, lastly to talk about is the helmet. And if you watched my other video, you already know a little bit about these, but I'm just going to go over it again. These two helmets are both German military, which you might not assume from the shape of them. But I'm just going to go over the spiked one first. So, the spiked one is early war. This is just a cover. It's black leather with brass accessories under this. This was worn in the beginning of the war up until 1916, which is when these helmets were first made, the M1916 Stahlhelm. Again, the reason they got rid of these, one, they're leather. They don't protect from shrapnel up ahead. Not up ahead, from above. And they're not very trench friendly. You know, if you're in a trench but you see a bunch of spikes walking, you kind of know where the enemy is. That was the theory anyway. So they wanted to get away from a bunch of guys looking like this to a better helmet. So then they started making this, which in ways were cheaper than making this. A lot faster, a lot more protective. It's steel versus the hardened leather of the previous years. It came with 2 vent holes, which also doubled as mounts for a armored plate that went on the front called a Sturmpanzer. Would have been given to machine gunners and snipers and other men that needed that kind of protection. Like I said, made in 1916, used all the way up until 1918, and were still in service into World War II for traditional reasons and ceremonial parades and stuff. So you'll see 2 versions of these liners. This white one and a more darker one looks more like the leather you'll think of. This white one, or cream colored one, is rabbit skin, which I'm not completely sure if this is rabbit skin, but the reason it was white back then is because they used rabbit skin, again, to save leather from the leather shortage. The reason, or the way to distinguish an M16 model from an M17 to an M18, there was three different versions, standardly, 3 different versions. This one, you'll see the band that holds in these cushioning pads is made of leather. That is a sign that this is an M1916 version. M17 versions will be exactly the same, but the steel or the leather liner band will become steel. In 1918, they keep the steel band, but swap the chin strap mounts. You'll see here and here. They'll switch that for a newer design, like the World War II German helmet, where they use square rings to hold on the chin strap. So that's how you distinguish M1916 to M1917 and M1918 ones. So if I just put this on here, this basically completes your World War I German, my World War I German impression. I'm sure there will be some of you in the comments to tell me I said some wrong things. That's fine. I want to learn. Please tell me in the comments. So this is my World War I German late war impression. I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next video.